Yeah, it's always good to hear that music on a Wednesday afternoon. That signifies that Helping Seniors of Brevard is about ready to get underway. I'm John Harper. Let me introduce to you and have the honor and privilege of telling you that Kerry Fink is behind the microphone as your host, and Kerry is also the executive director of Helping Seniors of Brevard. Good afternoon, Kerry.
Hey, John. Good afternoon. It's always fun when we get to gather at lunchtime around the radio.
It is.
Right here, 90.3 FM, WEJF. This is already turning out to be a good and busy year in all things seniors as we think about it. And, it's interesting. Like, if we look at this year so far, we began the year with talking with board certified elder law attorney on Helping Seniors Radio. He has been a friend of Helping Seniors for years and years and years. And we started out the year talking about legal documents that you want to get organized. We're very big in the Helping Seniors world about talking about making an aging plan. That was something that our founder, Joe Steckler, really, really talked about a lot. Everybody needs their own individual aging plan. And, we've talked about it. We call it, it's like those of us in Florida understand the hurricane plan. It means you want to have an idea of how you're going to respond to a challenge that comes up. It does not mean you want the storm at your front door. And so literally a large part of what we talk about in the Helping Seniors world is that you can get so far ahead by planning ahead. Like, think about it. When we're in hurricane season, they want you to think about different things. They want you to have your supplies on hand. They want you to have your, perhaps depending on where you live, your evacuation route mapped out, or how you're going to, if you're going to ride out the storm, how that's going to be done safely. All those different kind of considerations go into a hurricane plan. But everybody needs an aging plan. It's not even geographically based. It doesn't matter if you're beachside or inland. You still need an aging plan. And so at the beginning of the year, we had Bill Johnson, board certified elder law attorney, on the radio with us. And what we really want to do was talk about documents that you want to be sure that you have in your arsenal, not because you might run into a situation, or hopefully you're not going to run into a situation where they're necessary. But if something happens, it's how you bring peace of mind for yourself, for your family, because you've got all your details buttoned up. And we call it, a lot of times in the Helping Seniors world, we call it getting your ducks in a row, just to make it seem a little less, I don't know, academic. Or, you say plan, people think I got to get binders and protractors and rulers and start organizing all this stuff. But the key thing is, if you get started, you're going to have a huge impact. We just got the stats in. It was over 4,500 calls last year on the Helping Seniors info line. It's that free call. I'm going to give you that number, give you a second to grab a pencil and jot it down so that you can keep it handy. It's a great resource. For 15 years, Helping Seniors has answered this line 4,500, and I think it was like 4,545 calls last year. So actually up significantly over last year. But we get calls about everything. Housing, legal, medical, transportation, all kinds of questions, housing repairs, everything that you could think of comes into that category. And that number, so that you have it and you can jot it down, is 321-473-7770. I'll say it again, 321-473-7770. And that's a great number. So any of the things that we're going to talk about today, you say, oh, I heard them give a number, but I didn't get a chance to jot it down. It's fine. Just call 321-473-7770. Tell them you heard us talking about it on the radio. And Nancy, or one of our great volunteers, will answer the phone and make sure you get connected to the resource that you need. So as I mentioned, the first week of January, Bill Johnson shared 5 key documents that you want to make sure you have in place, or you have updated if you already had them in place, as you start the new year. It's just kind of like a best practices thing. If you missed that, this is why we always make these available as podcasts. So you can go back. You can go to the Helping Seniors website, helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. You can go to our YouTube channel, Helping Seniors Brevard. You can go to our Facebook page, Helping Seniors Brevard. For that matter, we're on X, we're on LinkedIn, we're all over the place, because we are serious about getting information in the hands of seniors and their families so that they can maximize quality of life. So then the next week, second week in January, we had Dr. Lee Sheldon, a noted area periodontist who's been friends with the Helping Seniors organization. And both these gentlemen, while actually counting John Harper, who's the president of the organization, all these folks have helped Joe get this organization established. In fact, they were all three of them helping Joe before there ever was a Helping Seniors, when Joe was building Joe's clubs for Brevard Alzheimer's. And he kind of retired from that and said, let's do more. And that's why Helping Seniors was formed. 15 years later, here we are, which brings us to today. And so as we're thinking about things for your aging plan, one of the things that we find is so important is that when you ask most people, they tell you they like it to stay home. And that is their aging in place preference. They like, I love the house. It's either paid for, almost paid for. We love the neighborhood. We love everything about it. We want to age in place. And so there are a lot of considerations. If I ran real quickly through the aging, that we have 7 steps in an aging plan. 1 is legal, 2 is we call it financial, and it's actually what we call longevity planning. But that's a different show for a different day. The third thing that we tap into, though, is staying at home safely. And the others are, by the way, sometimes you do have to move. So what would be your living options if you had to move? And then we talk about transportation and we talk about transportation and organization as an important step in your building plan. And then finally, we wrap it up with a talk about Medicare and Medicaid, because that kind of brings the whole wheel full circle right back to the very first topic, which is health and wellness. So there's 7 chapters. But today, I want to talk about if you want to age in place. And sometimes things happen along the way that we need to be cognizant. So if you're going to make an aging plan and you say, like, look, my goal is I love my home, I love where I live, I want to make it perfect so that I can age in place, then you sometimes want to start thinking about things that are going to help you do just that. I know a lot of the home care agencies that we work with, they say when they get called into somebody's home, they typically do some sort of an assessment. One part is for the person, but another part is just, is the environment safe? Is it conducive to not having further problems? Because as we've talked about so many times, one of the most dangerous things for seniors is like trips and falls and things like that can really put us in a dangerous position. So everything we can do that keeps us safe as we age is just a great thing to do, because you could have really good health, but one trip or fall, and now you could have a problem. So I'm really excited to introduce our guests for today who are joining us. This is actually the first time we've had the privilege of having you guys on the radio. I want to introduce you to great friends of ours, Jamie and Amy Powell, and their company is called Next Day Access. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
And
Yes, that's right.
and welcome into the studio. You know, as we've gotten to know each other, one of the things that I was fascinated, Amy, is that you actually have a medical background. You're a registered nurse by trade, have a lot of experience in this. You've helped a lot of people, particularly in rehab areas. So you have kind of a front row seat to seeing how this should be done for a patient's well-being and maximum success.
Yes, so I've been a registered nurse for 10 years. Also been working in acute and rehab facilities. One thing that I noticed as I progressed through my nursing career is we were doing discharge planning. And as you know, discharge starts at admission when you're a patient in a hospital. And one thing that I was noticing was that patients were not adequately, their homes were not fit for, say, like a broken hip
Right.
or a knee. So it turned into, can they discharge home versus will they have to go to another facility at the time being to continue their healing until they're able to walk up that 1 or 2 steps into their house versus being able to go home directly. So as I progressed in the rehab world of nursing, this became more and more evident, and I was seeing patients having to stay longer, patients having to go to a different facility because they still weren't able to make those small goals that were used to be easy for them are now too difficult. Like I said, one of the main things being walking up the stairs.
Right.
Another one being getting safely into their showers. So
Yes.
sometimes a bathtub is a hindrance to get into. That one step over that used to be very easy is now a hurdle.
Yeah.
So we decided, me and my husband, Jamie, that we wanted to do something that was meaningful. So we started Next Day Access about a year ago.
Well, what I was thinking as you were talking about this story is that we get the calls on the Senior Information Helpline from families. It's usually a family member. Mom is being discharged from the hospital, and they're saying it may not be safe for her to come home, and we got to think about this, and we've never had to think about that before. And there's all these first-time questions. And, this is part of Joe's drumbeat about making an aging plan, getting ahead of this stuff, because when mom is being discharged from a hospital at 3 p.m. this afternoon, everything is in crisis mode. And it's very difficult to think clearly and say, okay, this is what we need to prepare for this. This is how we need to organize this. These are the things that we should be thinking about, because you don't even realize that until you get home, especially when it's the first time that you're dealing with this. And I think about our own experience. My wife and I, we were caregivers for our mothers. And so we kind of lived the life of understanding, like, okay, mom can't come home. She got to come home safely. And this is the things that are going to be required to do that. And all of a sudden you're faced with a lot of different things to think about that you've never had to think about before.
Yes, that's correct, which is why with the Next Day Access, we actually keep a lot of the items in stock at our local facility here in Melbourne. We keep an inventory of ramps and grab bars, and even some basic stair lifts right in our warehouse here. So we can literally get you what you need to get you home sooner rather than waiting weeks.
It's an interesting dynamic, because I wanted to get Jamie in on the conversation too, because what I love about this, we say this all the time in the Helping Seniors world. People see ads on TV and they call 800 numbers for various things. I mean, they would see I'm going to pick on the Medicare world for just a moment, because somebody will see like their favorite actor from TV on there saying like, oh, here's your best Medicare plan. Just call 1-800 this and give us your zip code and we'll find you the right plan. And they may be well-meaning, but first of all, when you call the 800 number, you're not going to talk to Captain Kirk from Star Trek or whoever that person was you saw on TV. You're going to talk to a very nice person at a call center in Iowa, and they're going to try to help you figure out doctors in Florida. And so as well-meaning as all of that might be, wouldn't it be better to talk to somebody who's local, who knows the terrain, who knows the lay of the land, and then knows how to do the things locally, make it work locally, knows, like in the case of the Medicare I'm talking about, knows which doctors go with which insurance, and knows how to piece, oh, these are the prescriptions I need. They can piece all that together for you and get you a plan. We talk about it's better to deal with neighbors. And I've seen ads on TV, like in almost every category that Helping Seniors works, where they want you to call like an 800 number and get some help. And again, you're going to talk to a nice call center in Omaha. But what if you could, this is what's great about what you guys do. You are a local couple. You're like our neighbors. You have a commitment. You have the experience. Jamie, talk a little bit about your own background and how the idea of putting together a company that helps seniors make it stay credible and safe to be at home.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your first point, when you call us, it's either going to be me or Amy that's going to answer the phone.
Right.
So it's going to be us. You're going to get the personal service from day one. Not only, is it going to be us that comes out and evaluate, we're also going to be part of the install crew as well. We're not going to hand you off to another third party, company that manages the install. It's going to be us from the beginning to end. Your second question was kind of how did we get here?
Right.
We're a fairly new business. We've been in operation for just over a year now. Amy has a long background, in the nursing world. I came from the corporate world. I worked for, a large automotive manufacturer and a third-party logistics company where I did a lot of back office, continuous improvement type activities. So focusing on saving the corporation's money. At the end of the day, I would come home. Amy would tell me about her day where, she really helped someone, potentially saved a life by identifying some critical underlying issue, and I'm like, well, I helped the company save a few bucks today. So, it became kind of something where it was, I wasn't happy, in the world that I was in, and I wanted something a little bit more meaningful. So it encouraged me, not so subtly at one point when I was kind of complaining about it, to like just if you want to do this, let's do this, and my background is more in automotive technology. And I thought for sure we're going to start an automotive shop. That's what we're going to do. We're looking for businesses that were for sale, consider maybe even, starting our own. A consultant came to us in the process and said, hey, have you thought about some of the franchise world? And, we really weren't super interested in it, but they presented a bunch of different companies to us. And Next Day Access was probably at the bottom of the list. When we first heard about it, it's just like, it's interesting, but I'm not sure. And we went through a long process of vetting, and then we went through, learning more about them. And I was probably, 30 minutes into the conversation with them. And I remember texting Amy, like, I found what we're doing. It just resonated so well with what she does, the stories that she has, in the rehab world. And it seemed like the best fit for both of us.
Well, I was thinking as you were talking about your own experience as the person who was doing, you said, I'm here to improve the process and make money for our shareholders by saving the company money. But I was thinking as you were describing what you do, that is exactly what you do in Next Day Access. You're going to improve the process. You're going to make it safer for the senior, and you're going to do it at the most cost-effective way. So you're really helping them navigate to get to the best possible solution. So I would actually argue everything that you went through career-wise was actually just a setup for where you guys are now. So this is the point. This is the point that I want people to get. When you talk to somebody who is local, who really cares about the situation, they understand Brevard County, they understand what's going on, and they work with seniors, they have that background, they're the ones to call for the help that you need. Because not only what I love about it is you guys aren't flying on your own, you are backed up by a big company that is nationwide that has a lot of experience doing this. So you have like the best of all worlds. You have the expertise, the backup. You can always pick up the phone, I'm sure, and call somebody in the corporate office and say, okay, we got to figure this out. How do we make this work for Mrs. So-and-so, or whatever the case is? And at the same time, you're the face of it locally. So people are dealing with the people who are going to do the work in the house. They know who you are. They get to know you. They get to trust you. And then you're really, that by the same token, then you get to know them. And so you're really concerned to make sure that they're getting a good outcome.
There's a tremendous amount of collaboration, within the Next Day Access network, our suppliers and corporate. I can't tell you, how many times that we do, get on the phone with each other and say, hey, I have this situation that's a little bit different. How would you approach it? So we're very collaborative. We have all the support, great national agreements with our vendors. So we get attention if something does go wrong, we get the attention that we need to make it right. So yeah, it's a great company and a great support network.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I was actually also going to, ask you guys about, right? Because when somebody is calling somebody, for most of us, there's a line, and I always give her credit. This is from an elder law attorney named Amy Van Fossen, and she said, Kerry, when people walk into our office and they present whatever the challenges that they're trying to overcome with their loved one, she goes, for them, it's probably the first time in their life, maybe the second time, but for sure it's no more than a handful of times that they've even had to try to think about, wrap their heads around something like this. She goes, Kerry, we do this 20, 30 times a week, and we've been doing this for 20 years. There isn't much somebody can't bring to us that we haven't had to figure a way through before. But I see that's the whole point, like with where you guys are at, because Amy, of your registered nurse experience and your background in healthcare, you bring that aspect, and then with your problem-solving expertise and the ability that you know how to work to get things done, that makes you guys a very valuable kind of dynamic duo in this, I would think, Amy.
For sure.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the compliments. That's very kind of you. We do feel that what we offer is different, or something that is needed in the county that was missing before. And I do want to point out that one topic that we're most proud of is that we offer free evaluations for the home.
Yes.
So when you call us, we're not going to charge you a fee to come out to come see what the needs are. And we can do a full evaluation of the home. And also, we'll be honest with you. You might think that a small ramp is what you need, but we're going to be open and honest with you about what's going to work best for you and what's going to work best for you in the long term to keep you in your homes.
Well, and isn't this is really like half the battle is like, when you need an attorney, you want somebody who's really knowledgeable about the subject matter. When you need a doctor, you want to make sure you're getting the best doctor for whatever that particular thing that you're trying to contend with is. And I would say it's the same. You want to get hold, we don't have enough. I often say, like, as a consumer, we don't even necessarily know the right questions to ask. But because you guys have experience, you can lead us through that. Say, mom's coming home. Are they saying that she's got to have this and this and this? And that's where you guys can say, well, okay, based on our experience, then these are the things that we want to consider, right?
That exactly ties in. So, there are certain situations, it's not just what's right for today.
Right.
It's what's right for a year from now or 2 years from now. And where my background is not, in the medical world, I will rely on Amy and say, hey, our client, has this issue today. Here's, what we feel the prognosis might be. And then she can help guide me and say, hey, no, you really shouldn't do a ramp in this case because maybe a year from now it's not going to work for them. Or these are certain options that we should consider because, we want whatever we do to work for the client, whether it's today or, 2 years from now, as they're recovering, healing, or, whatever it may be with the disease progression that they have.
Yeah. Well, when we get into the second half of the show, we're going to spend some time. I really want to talk about some of I want to get into some case studies where you guys have made a difference and talk about some of the places that you've actually put things in place and how it's really helped the family. Because again, I come back to a lot of us, we don't really know the right question to ask. And one of the things we've learned along the way is in the Helping Seniors world is that we need to, because of the calls we take incoming and helping people solve the problems, we also learn the things that we want to try to help families understand that are going to make their journey easier on the aging process. And so we're always doing a lot of education events and having people come out. We should have you guys actually come out to one of our either Knowledge College or Wellness Series events. Those are coming up tomorrow, by the way. On the other side of the break, I'll share what's on deck for tomorrow. It's a good program, and I definitely hope that you will make plans to be at the Senior Resource Center 10 to noon. But the point is that we want to get people to know how to get the help they need when they need it. So real quick, we're talking with Jamie and Amy Powell of Next Day Access. Just how can people learn real quickly more about you? Is there a phone number? Is there a website? How do you like people to find out more about you guys?
Yeah, certainly. We can be reached. Our phone number is 321-775-3340, 321-775-3340. You can also go on nextdayaccess.com, and to find our location, you can put in your zip code, and it'll give our location, based on the zip code that you put in.
Perfect. Jamie and Amy Powell with Next Day Access. Well, that's about to our mid-show break, but stick around because we're going to get into more specifics about what Next Day Access can do to keep your home and living arrangements safe. Stay tuned.
12:33 right now in the afternoon on this Wednesday. You're listening to Helping Seniors of Brevard. Let's get back to more of the show, and here's your host, Kerry Fink. Kerry?
Hey, thanks, John Harper. Always good to be on the radio. Lunchtime Wednesdays, 90.3 FM, online at WEJF.net. And for many of you, you picked this up as a podcast. Every place podcasts are available, whether it be iTunes or Amazon Music or Spotify or iHeartRadio or Good Pods, you'll find Helping Seniors Radio. And actually now we've actually also launched Helping Seniors TV out on the podcast front too. So what we're excited about is as we put together information that's going to help you improve your own aging plan, we have the ability to sit down and talk with real experts who know their field so well and are great resources when you're running into stuff for the first time. And so if you're with us for the first part of the show, you already know our guests are Jamie and Amy Powell, who have a company called Next Day Access, and they are experts at all things when it comes to home improvement specifically that make life better and safer for our seniors. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And so one of the things that I was going to, just before we went into the break, I was going to mention every fourth Thursday, we do a program, a free program at the Senior Resource Center. That's where the Helping Seniors of Brevard headquarters are. I'll give you an address and give you a moment to jot that down as you can, so that you'll know how to get there. But tomorrow is the fourth Thursday of the month, so we'll be there 10 a.m. For Knowledge College for Aging. And this year, we are going to walk you through each of the 7 chapters. If you remember at the start of the show, I was outlining, we kind of believe there's 7 chapters that you want to consider about in your aging plan. The first is health and wellness. The second is legal. The third is the financial aspect or longevity planning, as we like to call it. The fourth is actually the topic that we're talking about today, which is staying home safely and making your home safe so that you can age gracefully and correctly at home. The fifth area that we talk about is sometimes people do decide they want to choose a different senior, or sometimes they have to choose a different senior living option, and we want to make sure you know a little bit about that. The sixth area is organization and transportation, and the seventh is actually Medicare and Medicaid, because that intertwines so often with health and wellness. But what we try to do in the Knowledge College is give you some material that will help you on developing your aging plan. So tomorrow, 10 a.m., you get a guest speaker who is me, and I'm actually going to be talking about those 7 chapters in a little bit in detail. And what we're going to try to do as a group is develop our own aging plan this year as we go along. So we're going to try to take each month step by step and focus in on one chapter of the aging plan. So tomorrow is kind of like the opening session where we're going to kind of give the lay of the land and the roadmap for ahead. So that's happening 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. It's absolutely free at the Senior Resource Center. I'm going to give you the address. It's 1344 South Apollo Boulevard. We're on the 2nd floor. The building outside says Apollo Professional Tower, and on the big side of the building it says Omni Healthcare, because they have a lot of offices in there, but we're on the 2nd floor. And if you come up, there's snacks, there's fun, there's usually door prizes, there's just all kinds of good things that we have fun with there for the whole event. There's a number of resources who are on site, but the main thing is that you're there to get the benefit of whatever we can share that's going to help you as you develop your aging plan. Then at 11, it's kind of like a double header, right? So we do the Knowledge College at 10, then we do at 11, we do the Wellness Series. And Wellness Series is always another great program where we're trying to just make you aware of things that you might want to become familiar with. And tomorrow's no exception. We have actually Russ Louie and Mika Allen, who are with the Brevard Parkinson's Alliance, and they're going to be there sharing a couple of things that are very important, because many people don't realize how often Parkinson's affects older adults, but there are also some really promising things that are helping make that not like a end of the road kind of sentence. Particularly Russ Louie has an organization called Rock Steady Boxing up in Titusville, and Mika Allen herself is a doctor of physical therapy, and so they got a lot of wisdom to share. And one of the cool things that they're going to share, because they shared it with us, I don't know, Amy, we're all together in a group called Golden Providers. Were you there when they did they did the virtual Parkinson's demonstration? It was really fantastic. Do you remember? So it's a thing where they literally, it's much like the dementia experience, where they try to take somebody who does not have dementia and they put glasses and gloves and things on them, and then try to simulate what it must be like for the person who's experiencing dementia. And it gives you just a whole level of insight and empathy into what they're going on. Well, the folks at the Brevard Parkinson's Alliance have come up with sort of the same thing. It's kind of like a simulator, and it was really, really interesting to see how somebody who did not have Parkinson's was trying to do normal things, but with all the effects of Parkinson's. It was absolutely fascinating, Amy.
Yes, I was there for that one. And yes, it was very interesting to see the way that they had tried to replicate Parkinsonian type symptoms with gloves and vibrating balls to imitate the shakiness, and just trying to do simple tasks like opening up your medicine.
Yeah.
And someone who would have Parkinson's definitely would have difficulties with that. And just seeing someone trying to, in a replicated simulation, having just as much struggles, it was a very enlightening experience.
Yeah.
Something that you don't really think about until it affects you, to be honest, or it's someone that you love, and you see someone go from a state of normalcy to a progressive state of decline. And what Jerry and Mika, what Jerry and Mika are doing is extraordinary.
Yeah, it's really going to be good to see because they're going to bring that tomorrow. So that's at 11 a.m. So 10 a.m. is Knowledge College, 11 is the wellness series. And what's fun about that is people usually come and spend the morning with us, and they go home with a lot of education and things that are important. And so one of the things that is so important for us is, so I hope we'll see you out there tomorrow if you're able to join us, 10 a.m., Knowledge College for Aging, 11 a.m. Wellness Series. Again, street address 1344 South Apollo Boulevard. We're on the second floor there, and we hope we'll see you there. But the point of it is what we're all trying to do is get information in the hands of people so they can make good decisions. And we were talking about during the break, we really need to have you come in and share more about this. I said in the second half of the show how valuable you guys are to families that are trying to figure out how to maneuver and make things work safely for mom, dad, aunt, uncle, whoever it is that's trying to do it. And during the break, there was a point I wanted to raise. I said a lot of times you'll see, like maybe here again, we're back to these national commercials, and you'll talk to a call center in Kansas, and they're going to try to maybe send somebody out to hook you up with a better, a safer shower or something like that. But you can really cut out a lot of the, I guess, the confusion by just dealing with somebody direct who's local, who can help you really figure out what's going to be the best solution. And I was asking you guys about that as we were in the mid-show break. I don't know which one, Jamie, if you want to grab that and talk a little bit to that.
Yeah, for sure. We love to be able to go into someone's home and talk to them about what the needs are and try to figure out, what is the right solution. We try to look at, we're providing solutions. We're not selling products. We're doing something that, helps them make their home work for them. Whether it's getting discharged from a rehab facility, the hospital, or just, as we age, things just don't work as well anymore, hips and knees, and sometimes those steps are just a little bit more difficult. So, there can be multiple solutions to one, problem. So.
Well, there's another question I wanted to ask you, because I asked you guys to both be thinking a little bit about it, because I'd like to share some case studies, some things that you said, this is where we made a difference for family. Before we get there, I just want to make sure everybody knows the different kind of things that they could call you for help with. Like, is there a list? Like, could we throw out, if you need help with this or this or this?
Yeah, really our top probably 4 or 5 products are, we do modular aluminum wheelchair ramps. So if you have, multiple steps coming into an entryway, it's usually where we start. Sometimes we have some space constrained properties, or we need to look at like a wheelchair type lift, something that you roll on, walk on, it lifts you up to the height that you need. Stair lifts, of course, that you need to get from the bottom to the top, without, walking up, down each one of them. We can help you there. And then some basics like grab bars. And even as things you don't really think about as pool lifts.
Yeah.
We get a lot of calls where it's just, I really want to use my pool again, but I can't get up and down the steps to get into it. So a simple solution that's out there to help you get back in the pool again. And aquatherapy is, Amy's educated me, is, really a great tool to have, to help, when you're trying to feel better, and heal.
So it's really important that people get to know what Next Day Access is about. We were talking before the break is that they could call you, that you have a website. But I really want to encourage people to learn more about what you do and see how it might fit into their own aging plans. How, again, would they reach you?
Yes, our phone number is 321-775-3340. And then the website, you can go to www.nextdayaccess.com. Put in the zip code and you'll find our location. We're the East Central Florida location.
Yeah, and what I love about what you guys are talking about is you guys are real people who are really here. And so when you call somebody, you're not calling a call center out of state. You're calling somebody who's right here. I thought one of the things that was interesting, you were relating a story where somebody was trying to get some kind of a quote or something established. They wouldn't even come out and talk unless the person gave them like a $5,000 deposit. And the reality is, you said, this is like, we're happy to come out and talk and evaluate and see what a good plan actually is.
Yeah, it really just kind of, it surprised me a little bit that anybody, I wouldn't feel comfortable asking for a large deposit just to come out and take a look at it. I don't think that's, the right approach for us. That's not the business that we want to run. But yeah, we absolutely would love to come out and do a free assessment. We can confirm, if you think you need a ramp, we can confirm that's the right solution, how we would lay it out, get you pricing. And there's some cases too where, we had a call the other day where it's, I just need an 11-foot ramp, for 3 steps, and it was going to be way too steep. So, we're able to talk through it, educate, and say, hey, this is really going to be too steep. It's not going to be safe for you. Here's an alternative plan that we can do. And, we talk through it, and back tomorrow, I'm going to be out doing the install for it.
Well, this is really coming right back to right back to what we talked about from the get-go, which is that that's why you guys are such an important is the teamwork. You guys are a married couple, but you work together in this because, Amy, you have the experience as a registered nurse. You have the background and kind of the improvement and understand how. I like how you said at the beginning of the show, your corporate experience was teaching you how to make improvements to processes so the company could save money, but now you're doing it directly for families and you're helping them find the right solution that's going to save them the most amount of money. Amy, you were going to add in on that, I think.
I was going to add on to that because originally the customer had purchased online a ramp they thought was going to be added and was asking us, looking for someone to install it, and that's when we informed him and educated him that length of ramp is not going to be appropriate for your needs because you're going to struggle. It's more of a hindrance than it is a help when the ramp is too steep.
But no, this is a thing that I think we all believe that we are the best people at searching stuff out on the internet, but we talk a lot about this. So you remember I said we call it getting your ducks in a row, but we've added a couple of lessons to that. We said like lesson number 1 on top of getting your ducks in a row is we always say don't try this on your own. Get the advice of somebody who's been down. This isn't their first rodeo. Like this might be the first time you're dealing with a ramp, but it's certainly not the first time you, Jamie, are.
Well, and that's so true. We had a situation a few months ago where, a lot of people will look at 1 or 2 steps and just say, I can just buy, simple ramp on Amazon, a threshold style ramp. They're only made, threshold style ramps are only made for 4 to 6 inch
Wow.
rise. And this gentleman, they put a ramp on 3 steps. It was about an 8-foot long one. It was real wobbly, and he fell off of it. And they had to have the fire department come and pick him up. He just got discharged from rehab and they got the ramp put up for him to get him home, but it didn't work. He immediately fell off of it. And then we came in and put, proper ramp with the platform and handrails and support. And I still remember, to this day, just the happiness that he had, going up and down the ramp, getting used to it in a scooter, knowing that he wasn't going to fall off of it again. Because the first time he came down the ramp, it was so slow. He was so scared, that accident was going to happen again. And then we worked with him for a good half an hour, just going up and down, making sure that he was comfortable before we left.
Yeah, that is such an important story because I was going to say the second lesson that we always add to get your ducks in a row. Don't try this on your own. But the second one we always add is don't put off things because aging problems don't get better with time. So like in the story that you were just sharing, what I think is important about it is like a lot of us, we love to go and do our research online. And maybe that's a good place to start, and particularly with AI, maybe it's better, maybe it's not. The problem is when you don't really have a base of knowledge to work from, you don't know what's an appropriate solution and what's not. To your point about just sharing that story about the ramp, the guy probably thought, well, this will be fine, because they've never done this before. You've done this so many times and helped so many people, like we're in trouble if we go steeper than this or if we don't set it up exactly this way. So my dad had an expression. He said, I'm not rich enough that I can afford to buy cheap. And what he meant by that was I need to pay for the solution, the cheapest solution that is actually going to do what I need it to do. I can't afford to waste money on a solution that doesn't work. And the story that you were telling is like, that is almost like a poster child for this because it is the example of probably somebody trying to be like, oh, I can figure this out on my own. So let me come up with this. That's going to be least expensive. But then to make matters worse, they could have wound up back in the hospital because they put in the wrong thing and it could have caused an injury and they would have been starting all over.
it very easily could have resulted in another injury, and surprised almost it didn't because he was recently discharged,
Yeah.
in that situation. So a lot of good intentions, went into the ramp that was put there. The community was trying to, help him make sure he could get home. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't the right solution for them to safely be able to get in and out of their house. And we flat out won't do anything that isn't safe.
Yeah.
Our priority is safety. And if we feel an install is not going to be safe, we won't do it.
Well, they have the expression two heads are better than one. And that's one of the reasons why I think you guys are so good, because you have that structural understanding and what needs to happen to make it work. But then, Amy, from your viewpoint, you have the understanding of what it takes from the medical side to make sure that we're going in the right direction as a registered nurse that's going to make a difference positively for that person.
Oh, yes. And I do have the, I love that I get to work with a lot of physical and occupational therapists, because they're the ones who are sending the information over to the nursing side about, safe transfers, safe lifts, safe movements. So those kind of deficiencies that a patient currently has that they didn't have before can affect how we install something. Something as simple as a grab bar for the shower. Mm-hmm. You have one little step inside. But if you install a grab bar on the wrong side and you've installed it on like a weakened side, like if they have left-sided deficits, weakness due to a stroke or other disease process, and they're not going to be safe because you don't have the strength to grab onto it. And I do want to point out that those suction cup grab bars,
that just sounds scary.
They are not grab bars.
They are not grab bars. I highly recommend that you have anyone install them into the wall, and please do not use suction cup grab bars, especially because the amount of weight that you put on them far exceeds the capacity that they can hold.
See, we're right back to the thing that we were talking about, where a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. You actually think you're doing the right thing, but in fact, you could be putting yourself more directly in harm's way, right? Because you have a false sense of security. It was like the fellow he thought he had a ramp, so he thought he was going to be okay, but could have wound up with a trip back to the hospital.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about, what are the calls? When should people call you? Like, who do you give me a concept of your the perfect call. I assume you prefer somebody who is probably, I'm sure you get involved in almost anything that where you can make a difference, but I would assume that you would hope to hear from somebody when they have time to really evaluate options and think through what's going to be best, so you can really have a dialogue and make the best possible solution for them.
Yeah, we absolutely love it when we're proactively looking at solutions. And the unfortunate side of it is it doesn't happen a lot. So I would probably say 80-90% of what we do is usually related to, discharge planning and being able to get home and get up the steps or get in the shower. But yeah, I mean, anytime you're feeling that the house just isn't quite working for you anymore, start thinking about it. I mean, as Amy mentioned earlier, we do free evaluations. So we can come talk through the concerns that you have. We can talk about what are the potential options. You're not going to get a hard sell from us. I'm not a salesperson. I really hate it. Like when you go into a car dealership or a furniture store and you have a salesperson, breathing down your neck, on it. We like to lay out the solutions. Here are the possible solutions to the problem, that you're experiencing. And then, you can decide at your own pace and time, when you'd like to address it. So we try to be more solution oriented, not sales, no pressure. If you want to move forward with us, that's amazing. But if you don't, we totally understand.
Well, I think the key is know your options, because a lot of times when people have to make decisions under kind of an emergency threat, I always joke is that, if you have to make a decision, and usually these decisions are not simple decisions. They're almost like, I don't want to say they're not always life and death, but they're pretty significant decisions you're having to make, and you're having to do them without, typically, if you're behind the curve, because mom's coming home from the hospital tomorrow, and now you're behind the curve and you're trying to figure all this stuff. You don't have time to do the research. You don't have the time to evaluate everything you need to do. So now you're going to make the best decision that you can with the time you have available. And that usually means several things. Number one, you didn't get to research it. Number two, it's going to be expensive because the options aren't as readily available, or you don't have as many choices because now you're under the gun, as it were. Whereas if somebody would take the time, call you guys, like say, okay, we're serious. We want to stay home. We want to get this right. Give us a plan that we could look at for the next, 10, 20 years here at home. Because I guarantee you, if you put a little bit of money into that home that maybe you've invested and you've paid off or whatever, I've even heard of people using reverse mortgages to be able to finance some of the things so that they can stay safely at home. And one of the myths that we've talked about is, we're saving the home for the kids and blah, 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 and all that. But the point is, you need to live safely because the kids, if you have good kids, they'd rather have you than the home. I mean, they get the home eventually, but they'd rather have you and not have to be worried about if you had a fall and, help, I fall and I can't get up. Much better that we go ahead and give you guys a call early on, get the benefit of your wisdom, and make a conscientious decision to do some steps to get this right over time. Am I saying that in a way that makes sense?
Oh, 1,000%. That's exactly what, we would love to see. And the objections that you're talking about, are pretty common that, we see when we're talking about some of these solutions, because some of them are not, inexpensive. But at the end of the day, you got to take care of yourself. You got to keep yourself healthy and make sure that, you prevent, another fall from happening, because once that fall happens, and it's difficult, to recover at times.
Yeah,
it's a long process.
I was going to say that, and there's another aspect to that too. Is that when you think about it, maybe you're investing some money up front to do all these things the right way, but when you match it up against what the cost of assisted living or different options, they're out there and they're great out there, but you could end up spending in 6 months. Just 6 months, and then have the next 6 months and the next 6 months and the next 6 months. Or you could take that amount of money, make your home safe, and now enjoy it for the next 10, 20 years, is I guess how I might view it.
Yeah, one of the stats that we see out there is, a lot of the modifications that we can do, would pay for itself with 1 or 2 months of, payments for assisted living. So,
and I just want to, we just got like literally half a minute left, but I just wanted to throw this question in. But I assume also when you put these in, you would make it that you could take these out fairly simply. If like, okay, now the house is the kids or something like that. So you haven't structurally changed it to the way that, it's only going to be good for somebody that has those senior issues. Am I saying that?
Yeah, absolutely correct. Most things can be removed. Ramps are, looked at as kind of temporary. Where, we go over the existing structure that's in place. But yeah, most of the time, you can restore it back to where it was.
Yeah, so it really makes a lot of sense when you think about it. We're talking with Jamie and Amy Powell. Thanks, guys, for being on the show with us today. One more time, if people want to reach you and get some more information, what's the best options?
You can call us at 321-775-3340 or look us up on nextdayaccess.com and then just use your zip code and you'll get to our location, East Central Florida.
All right. Sounds great. Well, thank you for joining us for Helping Seniors Radio today. Appreciate you guys being part of the Helping Seniors family. That is about the time that we have for Helping Seniors Radio today. We will be right back here next Wednesday. See you at lunchtime.